I'd like to invite you to pray with me, please. God, I ask that the words of my mouth and the meditations in all of our hearts might be acceptable in your sight, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. When I started having kids, I looked around and realized, as we came towards Christmas, that we did not have a nativity set, often referred to as a manger, for the house. And I searched high and low until I found a lovely little handcrafted one with pieces made out of heavy-duty recycled paper mache that I figured we'd treat gently, but if someone happened to chuck it across the room, it wouldn't break. Found it through a nice little fair trade organization called 10,000 Villages. Now, to help my kids learn about how we would be waiting all through the Advent season for the arrival of Jesus the Messiah, or as the Gospel of John describes the second person of the Trinity in our Gospel reading today, the light of the world, and the Word, capital W, made flesh. To help my kids learn about how we were waiting for Jesus all through the season of Advent, we would put out the little hand-painted paper mache nativity set, but I would hide away the baby Jesus. I would tuck away the baby Jesus from the nativity set and only put him out on Christmas Eve after the kids were asleep so that the baby Jesus would have arrived on Christmas morning. Which is how we got to the year when we, or more specifically, I, lost the baby Jesus. Yep. Looked high and low for that little baby Jesus. Checked the sock drawer where I'd often hidden him. Checked all the other cabinets and drawers in the house. No baby Jesus. And all the while I'm searching, I'm thinking to myself, some kind of parent you are, Tobias. Some kind of pastor you are, Tobias. You can't even find and keep track of the baby Jesus. Which means that in that very human moment of self-deprecation, I had forgotten what we all too often forget. That it is not we people who find and keep track of Jesus, but Jesus who finds us. Jesus, who was and is the Word, capital W, that was before time and will be on forever after time is no more. Jesus, who was and is with God, and Jesus, who was and is God. This light that shines in the darkness, a light that none of us can hold or that any of us on our own without God's help can find. This is the light of which we might catch a glimpse when it shines forth in children as they learn to value family and faith, friends, and God's beautiful created world and environment around us. This is the light of which we might catch a glimpse in people who step passionately into their vocation, be they educators, be they people working on marvelous after-school programs, medical professionals providing needed care, people traveling to other countries in the world to teach people who don't know how I'm thinking specifically of Liberia. Years ago, a woman I knew who traveled there after the Civil War had ended to help train up new gynecologists because that country had not even one of them. People passionately stepping into their vocations as police, as activists working for needed change, and so many other examples. We might catch a glimpse of this light in them. This is the light of which we might catch a glimpse when it shines forth in people like us, participating in God's grace, unfolding in our churches, our faith communities, as these faith communities shine forth in the world as God intends them, despite all of our human brokenness and the way the things that we create, including our churches, end up inevitably showing forth that brokenness. We might catch this glimpse of God's light through these places and us in those moments when we shine forth in the world as God intends us as churches and faith communities, as beacons of hope and healing. And any of us who catch glimpses of this light, we might find that we too can join those lovely messengers of peace of whom the prophet Isaiah spoke, who bring the gospel of peace, who bring the message of God's desire for healing and wholeness. How lovely indeed are the feet of such messengers. But they are not carrying the message of how they found Jesus. We're not carrying the message of how we found Jesus, but of how, as we were stumbling along in the world and our all too often confusing and challenging lives, we were discovered by this light that breaks in upon the darkness and brokenness of this world and our lives with a piercing clarity of joy and hope and healing and forgiveness and reconciliation, and an invitation to see and be re-rooted in the deeper places, be re-rooted in and with and by the power of grace of the deepest root that was through Jesse's line, interwoven with humanity, bringing about the promise and possibility of reconciliation and redemption in Jesus, the Messiah, who has been born again today. Now, truth be told, I don't actually remember where I found the baby Jesus that year that I lost him. I don't. But I know that I found him eventually, because we still have him. And this year, my teenage son whisked him away to be hidden, which means that this tradition lives on, and it would seem is starting to be carried on beyond me, which, of course, is the best we can hope for, isn't it? That worthwhile traditions that teach generations about some of the truest and richest and deepest things get passed on so that others might be discovered by and amazed by the life-changing love and joy and hope and mystery and wonder poured out for us in the Word, capital W, made flesh, the light that shines in the darkness. This Jesus who has been born in Bethlehem for the world and for you and for me.